Back for another edition of In the Huddle. Carl Dukes put them up along with Jason La Canfora, of course, Brian Baldinger. We are all here. The gang is back together, and unfortunately, the season is over. But we do have a big offseason to look forward to, and we got a lot to talk about today as we do this podcast. It is literally the middle of the week, Thursday, actually, after the Super Bowl. And let's just reflect a little bit, fellas. I mean, you know, this was, I don't think unexpected. I mean, I do think it was unexpected, should I say, the beatdown that happened. We thought it would be more competitive, even though we talked a lot about how dominant the Eagles were on both sides of the football up front. And Jason, I'll start with you because this is the first time I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes this flustered. In any game, regular season, and no, I mean, even the Super Bowl they lost to Tampa Bay, it was not like this, in my opinion.
It looked to me like they were out of ideas. It wasn't just that they were sort of out physical, which has happened at times before, and obviously we can go back to that Tampa Super Bowl. But it just looked like by midway through the second quarter, they kind of felt like, or at least I was getting vibes from them that like hope was almost lost and that no amount of screen passes and no amount of Mahomes just taking off and scrambling under duress was going to be enough to sort of stem this tide. For an Andy Reid operation to look like it was just, we're going to try a play here and we're going to try a play there, but it's probably going to be 3 and out. You know what I mean? Like we're probably not even going to get to midfield. It did feel different to me than even the Tampa one. It felt more suffocating. Like the idea that we've got no semblance of a run game to even try to lean on to get us out of this. Like, you know, I don't know, man. I thought Baldy, it would be desperation and Tooney would kick back inside and they'd go to a bunch of personnel packages we've never seen before, or he'd bring in 8 offensive linemen. You know what I mean? Like I just thought we'd go to some extreme to try to find something, right, to allow us to hold on to the ball for more than 30 seconds at a time. Yeah. But it just wasn't, it just never happened until garbage time.
But, you know, each step that you go up and you compete, every step you go up, the weaknesses that you do have become more and more exposed. So Joe Tooney was a great Band-Aid for literally 8 weeks. I mean, from week 14 when he went up against Myles Garrett, he was a great Band-Aid. And Caliendo was serviceable. You got to, get the All-Pro center next to him. You got to experience. So he was okay until they went against the Eagles. And Jalen. And really, the one thing that you see, I was just doing this draft show yesterday, and there's a reason why we pay attention to arm length, measurables. Joe Tooney came out of North Carolina State, 32-inch arms. So even a guy like Jalen Hunt, just a rookie, if he long arms him, I mean, Tooney doesn't have the length to be able to stop him. So Josh Sweat, Jalen Hunt, they all beat him. And they exposed him. And so once Mahomes started feeling that thing collapsing, I have not seen him, to your point, Carl. I did Big 12 games when Mahomes was at Texas Tech. And there was games when he'd play Oklahoma and they just had more talent than Texas Tech. And he'd be running around and scrambling like we saw him trying to make a play. But I haven't seen him play like that out of sorts since he left Texas Tech. And, they never threatened. They never even threatened to score. And then when you're turning it over 3 times like they are, some of it due to pressure, most of it due to pressure. He never saw Cooper DeJean. Never saw him. He's out there on the island, just trying to find, DeAndre Hopkins. And it just snowballed. There was 2 chances that they had to score. Right at the end of the first half when they hit DeAndre Hopkins, and the Eagles blew the coverage. And there was if he catches it on the run, he's going to score. The only guy back there was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He was covering Justin Watson down the field with his back turned. He's going to score. And then on the opening drive of the third quarter, they had Xavier Worthy running through the post. And Mahomes wants to go to him, and Jordan Davis collapsed the pocket and sacked him. If they scored on those 2 plays and suddenly it was 24-14,
right?
If and nuts and all that stuff. But that was their opportunity, and they couldn't do it. And to find out that they never blitzed one time, they never rushed more than 4. They ran one twist stunt the entire day in 38 dropbacks, and they dominated like that. What it does, and we'll get into more and more of the game, but it should be, and I was at the Senior Bowl, it's a deep draft for defensive linemen, very deep at every position. Like, that's where your resources have to go in this business, where you can win one-on-ones and you can expose a weakness of somebody out there. No matter if it's Jalen Hunt or Josh Sweat or Brandon Graham or, Jalen Carter, like every one of those guys won one-on-ones.
No doubt. That's the key. And I think, I don't know, maybe we talk about it, but I don't know, like, if the rest of the league talks about it as much, because everybody talks about scheme and, play calls and all that shit doesn't matter. Like, if I beat you one-on-one, man, and I win all day, it's going to be a long day for you. And that's what we got. That's what we witnessed.
And I think, honestly, that's what Vic Fangio said. He said, I think our 4 is better than your 5.
Yeah.
And we're gonna now, if we get beat and we need help, we've got other ideas. But as long as we're getting home and we're affecting the quarterback, whether it's pressure, quarterback hit, sack, whatever that is, as long as we keep doing it, we're going to keep going with 4. And we'll rotate you guys. We'll throw Brandon Graham in there for 14 plays. We'll throw the rookie Hunt in there. But we're going to keep you fresh. And if you keep, and then, of course, the score's piling up, now it's 17. And so I think Vic said, look, as long as this is going, we're going to keep doing this. We're not going to change anything.
Let's talk about the other side of this, fellas. It's in the Huddle pod. You can watch us, subscribe, like us, guys, and tell your friends. Don't miss an episode as we talk nothing but football on this podcast, and certainly the NFL. Big offseason ahead of us, and we got a lot to look forward to. Jalen Hurts on the other side of this. Mahomes flustered. Hurts looked like he was totally in his element, right? This moment, fellas, was just not too big for him. Jason, he's delivering the ball. He's taking his time. He wasn't rushed. I mean, he was just like, it was a video game for him on Sunday. It felt that way.
He was in control of his surroundings, in control of his domain. I thought his legs were just a backbreaker, crushing. When they did get pressure it was usually from the perimeter, right? And what did he do? Just turned it into a quarterback draw. I mean, he gutted them with runs right up the A gap 2 or 3 times that had to just feel like kicks in the nuts to Spags. Cause it's like when we did take away what they're trying to do on that obvious passing play, we still lost because of this guy's legs. I mean, look, the volume was there for Barkley, and that's kind of what we figured, but it was quantity, not quality, but it was enough just to stay balanced. Like, wasn't a lot of negative runs, was no explosives, but they just kind of knew who they were. And with what the defense was doing, they didn't have to change anything. They didn't have to make any big adjustments. Game flow and everything happening just kept playing to their advantage. The only thing, Baldy, that didn't play to their advantage was the extra long halftime, where the Chiefs defense could catch their breath after being on the field 20 minutes in the first half or whatever. Yeah. Jalen Hurts has been masterful now in 2 Super Bowls.
So 2 things, Jason, Carl. One was, okay, this was what Spags said we're going to do. We're going to stop Saquon. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to play a 2 high safety shell. We're going to press your wide receivers, whether we're in cover 3, cover 4. We're going to press your receivers, and we're going to play our 3 big linebackers with Chanel, Bolton, and Tranquil, and we're going to attack the line of scrimmage. And Saquon's not going to beat us. So it's interesting. They ran a play in the second quarter out of a pistol formation, and they ran Saquon to the left, and they pulled Mekhi Becton, and Tranquil came from the backside, chased it down, 1 yard loss. They came back in the third quarter with the exact same formation, the exact same play action. And this time they faked it to Saquon and they threw a 46-yard touchdown pass, to Devontae Smith. I mean, and you could see all the linebackers get sucked up. They didn't know until it was too late. And they doubled A.J. Brown on the play. Jalen made the right read. That's one thing. That was the game plan of Spags, and to a large degree it worked.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, if you take out the Week 16 loss of the Eagles to the Washington Commanders when Jalen got hurt in the first quarter, he finished the year 14-0. He did throw the 1 interception in the end zone, but he had a total of 3 turnovers in a 14-0 run. and he averaged 22 passes a game, and he threw 22 passes in this game. Now, some were design passes that ended up scrambling, like Jason's pointing out. But that was their formula. They got big explosive plays. Devontae, A.J. Brown on a broken coverage. Chanel got lost. But if you want to play those guys out there, those linebackers are going to get a little exposed, like in coverage. You'd rather have a real nickel, maybe even a Justin Reed, on A.J. Brown picking them up. And then they got Jahan Dotson, on the fourth pass of the game down the sideline, one-on-one. They won their one-on-ones. And that was the game that Spags was willing to play, with McDuffie and Watson and the guys that they had. And Jalen made him pay. He made him pay. And then he made some great checks, some great off. In fact, the play to Jahan Dotson I'm speaking of in that first quarter that set up the tush-push for the first touchdown, that was an audible check by Jalen. So to your point, he was in complete control, masterful. And, we can sort of spin all this going forward as we start getting into the draft, and everybody's going to be looking at the quarterbacks, which we always do. There was Jalen in 2020 with the 53rd pick in the second round. Yeah. And, the Eagles, to their credit, all right, Carson Wentz went sideways, went south, we're riding Jalen. And they just keep restocking their shelves. And I'll give you one other. Going back to Joe Banner, because all these teams are looking to copycat what the Eagles are doing. But the transition at left tackle has gone from Trey Thomas to Jason Peter to Jordan Mailata. The transition at right tackle went from John Runyon to Lane Johnson. Like, nobody has a succession. Maybe the Packers at quarterback, but nobody has a succession of offensive linemen like the Eagles. And they just keep putting their resources in there. And I don't think it's that difficult for these GMs. They just get sideways when it comes to how to build a team. The Eagles tell you, this is how you do it. And as long as your quarterback, even if he's the 53rd pick out of Oklahoma and had a transfer from Alabama, all the stuff you had to do, if you just keep surrounding that guy with great players and competent coaches, you can be successful.
Yeah, no doubt. The formula's there. And here's the thing that stands out to me about what you're talking about, Baldy, with that Jalen pick. We kind of all forget they had a quarterback. They had just paid. And Howie didn't give a damn. Howie didn't care. He said, I'm still going to go get another guy. Yeah. That's the things that GMs are afraid of, Jason. They don't have the balls to do that when they just paid a guy. He didn't care.
I think he's got the balls to trade for Myles Garrett. I don't think these guys are. These guys are going to be more motivated than ever. This is not complacency. He doesn't have anybody to pay. He's got everybody locked up long term who he needs to lock up. He's got cost certainty. He's got an owner who doesn't give a damn, who will give him carte blanche if you think this puts us over the top again. And if you swap out Josh Sweat for Myles Garrett, how many people would take that exchange? If you let Josh Sweat walk and go trade 2 late ones and something else for Myles Garrett, I think they're going to get it. More to the point, GMs I talk to in the league think they're going to get it.
Think about just the last 2 drafts, because it's about draft and development, right? So this draft was Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. I call him Cooper DeJam. Like Travis Kelce couldn't get off this jam on line of scrimmage. And Jalen Hunt. That was the first 3 picks this year. They all had plays in the Super Bowl. All right. The year before, they had Jalen Carter, they had Nolan Smith, and they had I want to say Milton. Tyler Steen. Tyler Steen, who played both guards this year. They struck gold in all 3, but all 6 of those players at the top of the draft, they're literally 6 for 6. But all those players at the top of the draft, they've developed all of them. Remember, they spent $51 million on Bryce Huff. It didn't work out.
Right.
It didn't fit in Vic's defense.
Yeah.
Well, here comes Nolan Smith, who might be one of the most feared edge rushers already in this league, the way he's developing. Draft and develop. You hear all this talk about, well, let's get Aaron Rodgers. Just get younger, draft well, and teach and coach. That's the formula. When the Kansas City Chiefs, lost to Tampa. Here comes Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. The next year, here comes, let's make a trade with Tyreek Hill. Let's go draft 6 defensive players. and let's develop those guys. They all start for them now. Like the template is there. Like draft and develop, get younger, put them on rookie contracts, and make sure you get the most out of these guys. Do your homework, what kind of guys they are. Football's got to be important, obviously. But, like, do your homework. Draft these guys and develop them.
So, Baldy, yeah, I mean, listen, and the draft and certainly the combine is next. You know, we'll be looking at that and looking at all these guys. Jason, it's interesting you say you think they're going to make a move to go get Garrett. If they do, I think that's monumental. I think that sends a statement across the league if the Eagles are able to somehow pull that off. And you're right. Everybody's saying 2 first rounds, 2 firsts to do it. I don't think they're scared to do that. Guys, it's in the huddle. We're talking about the aftermath of the Super Bowl, but we do have some other stuff to get to here today, including where did the Chiefs go? Let's talk about this for a second, fellas, because I've heard this insane idea that all of a sudden –
it's over. It's over, right? The window – that was it. The window
Bowl.
slammed shut. They've been exposed.
Yes.
He's going to have to wait 10 years to win a Super Bowl like Brady did. Oh, that's everywhere, huh? What is that garbage?
Well, they had a bad game. They got beat by a better team. But the Chiefs aren't going anywhere, guys. And I just, Jason, you're right. I mean, I'm hearing this and I'm like, what the hell are these people talking about? They're going to, if you were to tell me in the next 5 years, and it may be sooner than that they're not playing for another chip, I would call you crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about this. Where do they go? What do they need to do, in your opinion, Jason? I'll start with you.
Baldy laid out the blueprint. He referenced the blueprint as we talked about the prism of this game and how it went wrong. And the last time we saw them get exposed this way. And the last time they got exposed this way, they made a trade with the Baltimore Ravens to get Orlando Brown Jr., who was certainly an above grade left tackle, not a superstar, but a major upgrade on what they were running around with. And they tried to get Trent Williams, right? And that didn't work out. So they gave that money to Joe Thuney and said, all right, well, now we'll have the highest paid guard in the league at the time. And we're upgrading at left tackle. And we're going to start to reinvest in some things, running the ball. We want to be a little more balanced. I mean, it's all the same stuff. It's the same. It's literally, to me, almost the same point they're at now from a roster construction standpoint. So what could they do? Why don't you go get another Baltimore Ravens left tackle, Ronnie Stanley? With what he's been through physically and the injuries, I think it's basically a 2-year deal. And I bet you could get him around the $20 million that he was making on the deal he did 5 years ago when he was the highest paid left tackle in the game, right? And so then you move Thuney back inside, which helps offset the fact that your right guard is going to go to Tennessee and make tackle money, and that's fine. We've been really good drafting and developing interior offensive linemen. We'll put draft capital into that. Baldy, I think next year, I think they're an 11 personnel team. I think the Kelce thing has been it was awesome. It was historic. We're good with Noah Gray.
Yeah.
We're getting Rice back. We've got Worthy. They're always drafting receivers. They'll keep one of these guys, Hollywood, D-Hop, whichever one they like the most, Juju. And I think with a solid offensive line and 2 receivers who can win deep, they're going to make a concerted effort to be able to push the ball down the field again. And it's going to be about, we can be a volume pass game too. We can beat, if we have to throw 45 times, it's not going to be all 5-yard checkdowns. And I would say look out for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this thing is so far from over, it's not even close.
Okay, a couple things. One, when you're picking 31 or 32 every year, you're not getting an elite tackle. You're not getting Lane Johnson.
Right.
You're not getting Trent Williams. You're not getting those guys. And so they have gone to free agent. And look, the picks that they've had the last 2 years left tackle, they're not the answer. So they had to go get Orlando Brown. They had to go get Juwan Taylor. You got to go to free agency to get these guys. So they Brett Veach and Andy know what they need. In fact, Andy's the one that made the trade in Philadelphia for Jason Peters. And he's a Hall of Fame player. So you can't do what they did to get Mahomes at number 10 to go get an elite tackle. So they will go to free agency and they'll get the left tackle, kick Thuney inside, they'll be fine. But I think Xavier Worthy is going to be a star. Like that guy, he's proven that he can stay healthy, that he can run away from people. You can feed him a lot of different ways. The guy was productive this year. I can just imagine a year, an offseason, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy with Mahomes. Because all you got to do is listen to Mahomes at the press conference. And he says, I'm never going to forget this. This is never going to leave me. Like, that's Mahomes. You wish everybody would say that after a bad loss. But that's just him. Like, so as long as he's in charge and running the offense, and I think they should look at upgrading the running back position. Nothing against Pacheco or Fremont.
Yep.
But I think they had Shady McCoy in Philadelphia. They had Brian Westbrook. Like, they had elite runners. Like, I feel like Andy, just the way Philadelphia, not that there's a Saquon out there isn't, but we saw teams with Josh Jacobs and some of these things. I mean, I wouldn't, where is Ashton Genty going to go? Okay, you could imagine him in this offense. I mean, pick a guy, or the kid from North Carolina. Like, I think they're going to make an upgrade at running back.
Yeah,
along with the left tackle.
They've got to be able to run the ball. They've got to be more spectacular with their ability to run the ball. Absolutely. But that's kind of what we said coming out of the Tampa game. Doesn't this feel like very much what we said when Brady beat these guys in the COVID year?
Listen, Jason, in a matter of 2 months, they traded for Zeus. They got Joe Tooney in free agency, and they drafted Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. And Trey Smith wasn't on anybody's board,
right,
due to blood clots. But they're like, we'll give a 6th-round pick, and hopefully, nothing bad happens to him. And he's going to be the highest paid guard in football. So, I mean, they know what to do. It's not like they need to listen to the noise or any of it. They know exactly what to do to get right back on track.
Kelce, do you guys think he's done? Do you think he's done?
I do.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, just listening to him talk to his brother, I know it's emotional after a loss like that.
Sure.
But I feel like he's watched his brother just make this transition.
Unbelievable.
Like, I mean, I've known Jason Kelce since he came here. In my wildest dreams, I never thought Jason Kelce could be what he's become.
Pop culture icon.
That's unreal. And his wife too. And Travis is going to outdo all of that because he's going to do movies. It'd be one thing if you had an uncertain future.
Right.
But why put yourself through that? You're a Hall of Fame player. You've done everything you can for that organization. Like, to me, Travis is going to think back and he's going to go, I've got a whole nother world that's in front of me right now. Like, and like, I remember, I'm not making any comparisons with my career, but I remember I tried to play one more year and I couldn't pass physical. And I'm so a year later, I was so thankful I did it, because what if I did get seriously hurt? What if something really did where I'm dragging a leg the rest of my, like, he's young. He's got his whole life in front. He's got everything at his disposal. I think this is the time to walk. To try to come back and win a Super Bowl, to walk off into the sunset, to say, like Brandon Graham did. He's already said, if I can't play at the level or make the commitment that I need to make to my teammates, like, he's saying all the right things. And when he's saying all the right things, he's basically writing his epitaph.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And you're absolutely right. Some guys just don't know when. I think the timing for him is perfect.
But to Baldy's point, not many guys have the day my career ends, I can go on tour with my girlfriend, Taylor Swift. I'm making millions of dollars with my podcast with my brother. My brother has a late night talk show. You don't think I could get a late night talk? Like, I mean, you want to mess around with WWE and make $5 million a year doing stuff like Gronk did for a while.
I mean, he could be the next. He could be, in some ways, the next Rock. He could be the next generation of Rock. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not for everybody, but if he wants to do pictures, if he wants to do, there's just, I mean, he's got the agent, he's got CAA and his, speed dial. I mean, they're all coming after him. So, like, he's going to have so many choices.
It's a great point. Guys, it's in the huddle. Carl Dukes, Jason Canfora, and Baldy with us here, always talking football with you guys. Again, follow us, like us, subscribe. We got to talk about the final hire. I made fun of this because I didn't think anybody wanted the job, but he ultimately takes the job, and that's Kellen Moore. So he comes in now as a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. Baldy, we've seen this before, where guys come in like this and they know what direction they want to go in. The problem for Kellen Moore, it's not that he can't get it done. He's just up against a lot of obstacles. Saints have a lot of problems. They're cap strapped. Their guys are getting long in the tooth on the defensive side of the football. He's got to figure out his quarterback situation. He's the last hire. Fellas, what do you think about this hire for the New Orleans Saints?
Well, it's interesting. Kellen's dad moved to New Jersey when Kellen got the job in Philadelphia. So I see him in the gym. He's a lifelong high school football coach. Highly, highly successful in the state of Washington. He coached his son, coached all his kids. He's a great guy. I used to talk to his dad about Kellen. So, football's in his blood. He played the position. He's been in Dallas. He's been in, the Chargers. He knows what to do. Not everybody has Howie Roseman and Cap creativity to put that team together.
Yeah. So
you're only going to be as good as the guys that you're putting on the field. You could draw up all the schemes, and they got a quarterback situation. They got an aging roster. They don't have any money. They're going to have to cut good players. It's a tough start. So Sean Payton went in there and he turned it around.
Yeah.
He had one great draft that really propelled him to division champs when he got Kamara and Ramczyk and, in Lattimore. He's going to need some great drafts. He's going to need some creativity from Mickey Loomis and from the owner. He's going to need a lot of help. And Tampa is so far in front of them right now with what they've got that they better be patient with them. They just better be patient.
Well, it's not even just Tampa. I think they got to catch the Panthers. It's bleak when they get around to finally, we're a couple days into the start of the waiver period, right? And in a month from now, the league year opens up. I talked to people in the league who are like, I would take a shot on Cam Jordan, but I don't even know how the hell they can extricate themselves from the contract enough to make him tradable and then be able to swallow the pill. I think part of the reason a lot of people didn't take that job is if you got deep enough in an interviewing process, I think it became pretty clear to you that a world exists where you're playing with Spencer Rattler this year and you're playing with a roster. I'm not joking. And you're playing with a roster filled with dudes who are going to play in this spring league, right? Yeah. Just filling gaps and every draft pick's making the team. It's an expansion team. That's what 2025 Saints could be. They've got to finally take their medicine. And I think they're going to take it in a really ugly way. I think they're going to do whatever they can to get Carr out of there just because it just doesn't we've seen it, done it. Whatever we have to eat is still better than playing another year with him. Maybe we turn Rattler into maybe Kellen Moore can make Rattler a piece that we flip or a great long-term backup, but that's on the table. So they haven't hit rock bottom yet.
So, but to your point, though, here's the other factor here. When you take the job on February 11th, every available good assistant coach has been taken. Yeah. So not only are you now trying to figure out what your roster is, but you might have to go through a year where you got coaches in there that you don't really love, but they can get the job done, get you through the year until you get your coaches.
Right. This isn't even his real staff. This is his starter staff to get him to 2026, which will be a full real offseason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point. Fellas, as far as Baldy, I want to get your thoughts on the Senior Bowl because there was a lot of, hype videos coming out that week and all the edge rushers. And just give me your assessment on maybe a couple of guys and what you thought.
All right. So Jim Nagy has been a friend and gave me the field pass. So, I remember Mike Tomlin was in the middle of every drill. Every single offensive line, defensive line drill. Mike was there. He's looking for players, but he's putting his eyeballs on these kids. I got to tell you, it's been a while since I've been to the Senior Bowl, so it's not a fair evaluation. But I think this is as deep a draft of defensive linemen across the board. Interior defensive tackles, edge rushers, outside linebackers. And I'm talking NFL-ready bodies.
Right.
Big, thick, strong, twitched. When we go to Indy and we watch these guys test, you're going to see some guys test off there. I don't know if you're going to see Nolan Smith in this or Micah Parsons. But, Abdul Carter is going to test great. There's going to be guys. It won't surprise me that if in the first 50 picks, there's 7 defensive tackles taken. Wow. This is the year where you could get 2 of them and you can start to put the blueprint of the Eagles together. Darius Alexander from Toledo, Mike Green from Marshall, an edge rusher. There's guys, and they're all shapes. You could get the kid from Kentucky who's just a big old oak tree.
Yeah.
6'6", 350. Just he's got space. Not a great player, but I mean, if you want a space eater, let your linebackers go run. He's your guy. So I think honestly, this and it's a good draft for interior offensive linemen too. A lot of good guards. I mean, Tyler Booker from Alabama might be the first lineman taken. And I don't remember the last time a guard, maybe Brandon Sheriff, maybe you got to go back to Brandon Sheriff's year where a guard was the first lineman taken. He's what in the scouting world, he's just a clean prospect. Like you don't have to, you go to sleep at night, you never worry about Tyler Booker. Yeah, you have a new regime in there, you need your alpha male in your outline, it's Tyler Booker. You want to be a model citizen in your locker room every day, there's Tyler Booker. I mean, he's just that good. And I got to know him at the All Out Masterminds this year. Like, he's just a great kid. He came up to me, said, would you watch my Alabama-Georgia tape and just tell me what you think, Baldy? Can we go through it? Like, he just, that's who Creed Humphrey is. That's who Trey Smith is in Kansas City. That's what Landon Dickerson is in Philly.
Yeah.
That's who this kid is.
Yeah, that's great stuff. We got plenty of time to talk about it, but I do want to ask you before we get out of here, who's the number one quarterback on the board for you right now, fellas? Is it Cam Ward or is it Shedeur?
They're gonna go back and forth with Cam and Shedeur. It just is.
Yep.
I think there's drop off, but I honestly, and this is not to knock either player because they might become great. None of us know. But when I talk to high level personnel people in this business, and they tell me if we put last year's class in this draft, Bo Nix would go before any of these guys. Okay? Michael Penix Jr. would go before any. So that's okay. I mean, we know all the quarterback needy teams, and there's 5 of them in the top 10.
Yeah.
But, I mean, starting with Tennessee. So it's a little bit beware, I think, at this point. And then who's the number 3? Is it Jackson Dart?
Right.
Is it Jalen Milroe? I mean, it's really there's a lot of questions about this class.
That's fair. Jason, what do you think real quick?
This is always econ 101 for me, supply and demand. We can sit here and talk about the grades. Nobody knew Mahomes was going to be that great. And you know what I mean? No, a lot of people would have told you that Josh Rosen was the best UCLA quarterback prospect since Troy.
Yeah.
So it's supply and demand. So they're going high. I think they're going 1-2. I think Jackson Dart is number 3. The thing I heard talking to people about the Super Bowl, the Senior Bowl more than anything else was that there's going to be a 3 in the first round. He's going to be the 3rd. What order? I would throw a Dart, Miami first, and then Sanders. But that's we're early, and that's just throwing a dart. But it is what it is. Enough of them have hit. And they're cheap enough, relatively speaking, to what you're paying. I mean, look at what Jacoby Brissett made last year, and look at what Shedeur Sanders is going to make this year.
Yeah,
I mean, it's backup quarterback. That's backup quarterback money. I think it is what it is, and there is a quarterback premium in the draft, and there definitely will be in this one.
Guys, we have a lot to talk about. Where is Myles Garrett going? Where is Stafford going to land? Cooper Kupp. I mean, there's so many big offseason things that are going to play
Jermaine Pratt.
Exactly.
Going out. People I mean, look, Jermaine Pratt was tight with Lou Anarumo. He's in Indianapolis now. Like some of these teams, some of these players that have just suffered and can't see this thing turning around, they're looking at Saquon coming to Philadelphia, getting out of New York and winning a Super Bowl and being on Jimmy Fallon at night. Like these players – movement, like they're not going to waste the prime of their careers in places where they don't see, promise. And I don't blame them, to be honest with you. I don't blame them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Big offseason ahead. We'll start talking about the dates that are important to us before we get to the new league year. But we got a lot to get to. This season's over. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. Hell of a run this season. Incredible Super Bowl. But now we turn the page and start seeing who's going to build and maybe be there next year.
By the way, I want to just let you know here, I'll be in Indianapolis February 27th, 28th, March 1st. I'll see a bunch of these defensive linemen, quarterbacks. So I'm going to put my eyeballs on these guys. I'll be happy to share everything that I sort of glean and see.
Absolutely. Combine's big deal, man. Always is. All right, fellas, enjoy. Appreciate it as always. And thank you guys for being here. Subscribe and like us. Don't miss an episode. Brian Baldinger, Jason Lock on 4. Follow us. Carl Dukes. We'll talk to you next time on In the Huddle.